In this lesson, we'll talk about transferring high-resolution detail from one mesh to another mesh with different topology. So there may come a time when we're building our models here, and we go through and we do the sculpting and create all of that high-resolution detail that we like, and then we decide, well, we need to come in and actually modify the topology. Now, we don't want to go ahead and have to re-sculpt all of that detail on the new mesh. We actually want to transfer as much of that detail as we can to the geometry with the new topology, the new edge flow. And so this process is actually very easy and simple here in Mudbox, and we can do that using Send to Maya or Send 3ds Max and so forth to really create a nice back and forth between these applications. Let's take a look specifically at the transfer details though in this lesson, and then we'll take a look at that integration with the other 3D apps in a couple of lessons. So let's say that we have this model and we've got all the details sculpted in. If we go ahead and jump down to our lowest level here on this particular, and this is actually lesson 15 start if you want to use that, you can see what that geometry looks like. But let's say for whatever reason we want to come in and make some modifications to the topology. So we would import this into another application, send it over to Maya, however it is that we want to do that. And then we would come up with, let's say, something like this. So we turn on this T-Rex underscore topo and turn off our T-Rex for now. And so you can see I've just added some edge loops. Let's say I want to have a little bit more resolution in here or around the neck. I've also kind of extruded the area around the eye and the mouth. We want to have maybe a little bit more ability to sculpt in here in the specific areas. And so for whatever reason we want to modify the topology, add edge loops, whatever we want to do. So now this actual mesh doesn't have any subdivision levels. It doesn't have any of that high resolution detail on it. It just has the new topology. So what we want to do is transfer all of our high-res detail from this mesh to the new mesh that we've created. Okay, so to do that, very simple, we'll go to Mesh, Transfer Details, and you can see it brings up a little window here, and we also have some advanced properties that we can set. So if we take a look up at the top, the target model is going to be the model with the new topology. Now it shouldn't have any subdivision levels. This is going to be our T-Rex underscore topo is going to be our target. That's where we want that high-res detail to end up. Now the source model is going to be obviously the high-res mesh, but we don't need to select the highest level. We're going to actually select the level that matches up with our target model, which in this case is actually level 0. Okay, so even though there's not really any detail here at level 0, we're going to choose this. Okay, the search distance, that's going to be the distance that the samples go to find that detail. And then we have a button for transfer details. You can also open up your advanced settings. We've got test both sides if you've got objects or faces that are facing the other direction, reversed. It will test those as well. We can choose how the samples. We can also subdivide target. We can choose whether we want to, how far we want to subdivide our target in creating those levels. If we choose automatic, it'll go ahead and subdivide it until the number of polygons match the number of polygons in that level of the source model, match it or a little bit higher. We can choose to, if there are any missed areas that don't get calculated, we can select those. We can also transfer joint weights, and we can also transfer this as a sculpt layer if we want to. Okay, that's actually this one here. This will allow us to transfer any sculpt layers that we may have on this. All right, and so once we've got these set, let's go ahead and choose Transfer Details. We'll pretty much use the default settings here. We'll go ahead and say Transfer. So it's going to go through the process of calculating this. So this is going to be kind of similar to transferring the paint layers, where we're kind of calculating this using kind of ray casting to look for the details, and then transfer that onto our target mesh, which in this case is something that has different topology. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in the last lesson, where we'll go over, as I said, all the integration features here. So now that it's done, let's go ahead and turn off that original mesh, and now we can see this is actually our mesh with the new topology. If we were to go ahead and look at this, it now has all of those subdivision levels. Okay, we can go up and down the levels. We go ahead and page down to, so we can take a look and just see that that is in fact our new topology. So what we started out with, which was the basically level 0 mesh with new topology but no subdivision levels, we now have all of the subdivision levels with the new topology taken into account, and we have all of that high-res detail that we sculpted projected into those new levels as we go up. So we've very quickly been able to update our mesh with the new topology and keep all the sculpting information, so we don't have to lose any work that we've already done just because we want to update the mesh. So that's a really powerful feature. It's located here under Mesh Transfer Details. All right. Now, one other thing that I wanted to look at in this lesson is the fact that if we bring in a very high-res mesh, so let's say that we've got a high-res mesh that you've brought in from another application. It has been subdivided and sculpted maybe in another application, and you've brought it in, but it doesn't have any subdivision levels. Let's say all we have is this highest level, and that's it. So for Mudbox to work really well, we want to have all of those subdivision levels in there. So another feature that we'll just look at real quick and just show you where it is to go in here and say rebuild subdivision levels. And what that will do is come in, and assuming that this can be subdivided, the mesh, it'll take the high-res mesh and reconstruct those subdivision levels as far down as it can go. So it'll allow you to get those subdivision levels back if you bring in something that's really high-res like this, and for instance, it doesn't have any subdivision levels on it. Okay, so that's something else to think about, and another feature in Mudbox that can really help us working with our meshes. All right, so the next thing that we want to talk about is using the pose tools. So that's this third tray down here that will allow us to modify our model and also to add a pose to our characters. Pose the limbs up, and we can now add pose presets and use kind of a hierarchy-based approach with our joints. And so we'll take a look at that process in the next lesson.